In this video, we continue on with the next chapter of The Mind's Attainment by Uriel Buchanan. I am Daisy, your hostess, and if you're new to my channel, welcome, welcome, and to our loyal subscribers, welcome back. I love the gentle, no-nonsense, non-scientific approach study of these laws and methods for obtaining happiness, success, and power. Through what? Through the silent force of thought. It's so simple that we all can easily miss it. Why? Because these laws, these immutable laws, are in place and they will work whether we are a positive person or a negative person, whether we are aware of it or not. It is a matter of the coded laws that are on this planet. It's almost like going to another country and committing an infraction. It's better that we know the laws so that we can go on to experience a great quality of life, don't you think? The sooner that we are aware of it, the sooner we can begin to implement these laws in our lives. That's how I see it. Now, one of the takeaways from the previous chapter for me was the idea that every thought is a force which is building for the future. The beautiful thing is that the thoughts are controlled by who? By each individual person. So that is your domain, my domain, our domain individually that we can conquer. And I liked how the author said that if our current situation right now is not of the best environment and not of the best social circles, the author is encouraging us not to be forced to continue with these relationships and to understand that they are there right now because of the associations are kindred to past thoughts and desires. And as we begin to upgrade the program, we will then also begin to create the mood in the mind that will now set into motion these good things for our future goodwill, or depending on how we're thinking, for our ill. So as we cultivate cheerfulness, happiness, beauty, and love, we begin to slowly set the stage for those things to be attracted into our lives. Isn't that beautiful? It's like we give ourselves, by our thoughts, a clean slate every day and an opportunity to build that future that we want, to create that magnetic force to draw to us the circumstances, the people, the surroundings of those things that we hold in our ideal, in our thoughts. How simple, how beautiful. And with that, let's move on to chapter 9, The Power of Silence. Back of all that we see, back of the vast universe of countless forms, is the self-existent principle which is eternally building and destroying through the agency of immutable laws. Invisible influences sustained by the energies of nature are ever working in man to awaken a deeper consciousness and nobler ideal. And he who faithfully responds to the evolutionary forces which spring up in the heart as an everlasting fountain will find the true source of goodness and peace, and his mind will be illumined by the unfading light of wisdom and love. There is a faculty of the mind which has power to arouse and direct the latent energies and stamp with the character of purpose every thought and act. By the focalization of the will, the brain is made plastic and capable of receiving suggestions from the superconscious mind. The magnetic influence sent out from the inmost center of consciousness is transmitted from the brain to the different nerve centers of the body until the whole organism is thrilled by the fire of internal energy. When the conscious and subconscious faculties of the mind are attuned with one accord and dominated by a singleness of purpose, a battery is formed which is invincible, brooking no interference and heeding no obstacles. Willpower is intensified by the deep desire of the subliminal self reaching out through the avenues of the senses in search of things desired. By the nature and intensity of desire, which governs the use of the will, man relates himself either to the kingdom of light or to the realm of darkness. Desire is the invincible magnet which establishes an affinity with the objective world and draws from environment the course of man's destiny. If man desires only the true and the good, he has power to gradually surround himself with associations kindred to his yearnings. Or if he desires the frivolities of life and is governed by ignoble thoughts which arise from the lower instincts, he will attract failure and misfortune. When there is intense concentration of thought by one deeply in earnest, a magnetic battery is formed in the vital centers which imparts to the body a positive vibration that acts on other persons and compels response, influencing all who are brought within range. He who once feels this power awakening within realizes to what heights he may ascend and receives a foregleam of the possibilities which await him. To come into a realization of power, you must cultivate a true love for the highest ideas of the mind. The degree of love's intensity will determine the force of the heart's desire, and desire is the magic wand which kindles the hidden fire of the will and awakens the resolve to do and dare. You must learn patience and silence, and weave the elements of your being into a cord of harmony and strength. Conserve the forces which nature has given you and direct them by an invincible will to the highest uses of life. There is no place for mental and physical drones anywhere in the broad empire of the world. Inactive people are useless to themselves and a burden to their friends and the race. By the constant toil of invisible creatures, the tiniest insects, the structure of the world was built and the foundation of the loftiest mountains laid. Activity is the universal law of nature. It is manifested by the busy insects in their ceaseless round of toil, by the brightness of the sun whose penetrating rays open the buds and color the flowers, by the floating clouds and the noise of storms, by the terrific speed of the lightning and the voice of the thunder. All that is inanimate, from atom to sun, and all animate things, from insect to man, are governed by the eternal law of activity and change. It is the nature of this law to push everything from a lower to a higher state of existence, to manifest the growing harmonies of evolution, and to shape all things into the image and after the likeness of perfect types. But man, through egotism and ignorance, partially ignores this law, and in proportionate degree closes the avenues of his heart to the influx of wisdom and love. Repose is the opposite of motion. Everything in existence is dual, having a positive and negative aspect. In nature, we see the dual manifestation in the alternation of night and day, darkness and light, winter and summer. Force is centrifugal and centripetal, and its dual attributes are expressed by repulsion and attraction. Life is a dual expression of will and desire, action and repose. The highest power is found in repose, not the repose of idleness, but the repose of conscience, self-mastery, and power, the repose that achieves without exertion. Man can never know his possibilities until he is alone with himself and by introspection learns what is within him. Genius is born of the silent moments spent in communion with the higher self. In silence, the planted seed attracts the forces from the dark surroundings of its lodging place, until the expanding germ uncloses the shell of its limitation and pushes its way through the damp soil, winning for itself a place in the bright sunlight and wooing breezes. Silently, the invisible vapor is carried upward from the heaving bosom of the seas by the warmth of the sunlight until the rolling vapors are slowly condensed into shower clouds that freshen the earth with tears of crystal raindrops. In peaceful silence, beneath the white mantle of snow, all nature becomes renewed and gathers in her heart the melody of a new song. Out of the long night of winter comes the morning of spring. Out of the darkness, on wings of light, is carried the message of life. Out of the silence comes forth the music of nature. In silence, sink your mind down to the center of contemplation in the still depths of your being. Hold yourself receptive to the impressions that will come to you and listen with concentrated attention for the voice of the monitor within. Go into the silence each night preparatory to entering the peaceful realm of sleep. Lay aside all thought and care of the events of the day and have no anxiety for the morrow. With resignation and confiding joy, even in the midst of threatened disaster, raise yourself above all forebodings, and while in sympathetic touch with the invisible currents of power, repeat to yourself mentally the following thoughts. I am perfect life in loving relation to the universal order. While my body is being renewed by nature's healing forces, I will seek affinity with thoughts to which I am most attracted, thoughts that will help me to realize my supreme possibilities, my highest hopes. I now find rest from thoughts that disturb the mind, and like the crystal waters of the mountain lagoon, whose unruffled surface at night reflects the glory of the stars, my brain shall reflect the image of those jeweled thoughts which shine in the firmament of truth. I sleep, but am yet conscious. I pass from discord to peace, from darkness to light. That personality, which in daydreams I called self, I now see is only a broken reflection, an imperfect symbol of the real self which sleeps not and never changes. I will repair the neglected temple and renew the fires on the altar of the human heart with the sacred breath of undying love. Love for the beautiful, enthusiasm for the good, and devotion to all that is true. The past is forgotten, the present only is mine. I know myself as I am. I dwell in the eternal now. How sweet to those who toil is the spirit of sleep. It soothes the aching brow and rebuilds the wasted tissues with the elixir of omnipresent life. It transmutes the sluggish, timid heart, which beats to the discord of crushed and fluctuating hopes, into the strong and eager pulsations which fire the blood with a magnetic energy that revivifies the body and brain. To arise at the dawn of day, when the welcome morning, with its rays of peace and newborn hope, wakes out of darkness into light, will open the eyes to unexpected visions and bring to the mind a spirit of adoration. You will be inspired by the mental atmosphere of that peaceful hour and will feel your nearness to the great heart of nature. The earliest inspiration of the day will live in your heart and influence your mind through all the hours till night. A practical application of the principle of motion and repose may be summed up in the words, haste not, rest not. Have a fixed purpose, a high ideal, and make no false steps, no intemperate haste, no feverish rush, but with controlled energy and unceasing effort, having a thorough knowledge of details and the power of execution, move calmly and unfaltering toward the accomplishment of some great purpose. Have ever present in your mind one central thought, one noble ideal, which towers above all others. Allow no anxieties, no thoughts of possible failure to haunt the mind, but with absolute control of the invisible forces of your being, Follow with an unquestioning faith the bright star that leads to the fulfillment of your highest hopes. Keep yourself in harmony with the living currents of advanced thought and in sympathetic touch with the present realities. Banish fear and invoke the spirit of courage to give you strength in the hour of trial. Fear is the canker worm of happiness. It steals away man's better judgment and makes him cringe and crawl. There is nothing to fear. The worst that can happen is death. And death we have no reason to fear when we learn that the mind is free in its omniscience. The real self is an inseparable part of that life which extends from the everlasting to the everlasting. To this self there is no disease or misfortune, no pain or sorrow. It is untouched by the wreck of matter and the crash of the worlds. Beyond the cloud hand and shadow is the real self, which cannot be affected by anything we do or leave undone. Place your reliance there. Enter the silence and come face to face with the infinite power. There you will find the sanctuary where the divine and human blend. There you will find a refuge from the tumult of the world and will gain strength to go forth with a living power which will drive from you all that is morbid or weak. Then you will realize that you already dwell in eternity, in the real, and that the dazzling dream you have had of the future in some mystical world beyond the skies may be realized here and now. Then every sense will become alive to the beauties and the realities of the eternal present. Then you will know that every tree and plant and flower, the ocean and the vaulted heaven, as well as every human being, live in the radiance of divine love, truth, and goodness. And when you feel this to be true, there is no limit to the power you may draw to you for the accomplishment of the things desired. End of chapter 9. We're going to roll right through to chapter 10, so sit back as I turn the page. Individual supremacy. All that we see is a symbol of that which we cannot see. Every conceivable form is the result of an aggregation of cells containing the divine spark. The primary cell is the same in the stone, the plant, the bird, the man. There is an unbroken gradation of life from the microscopic drop of protoplasm in the fertile egg of the tiniest insect to the perfect composite man. The force which imprisons the cell in the rock is the same that controls the heart's ceaseless beating, holds the planets in their orbits, and feeds the quenchless flame of suns. The destructive elements reduce the rock to dust. The dust becomes soil from which the tiny seeds draw nourishment and strengthen to send forth their tender shoots into the air and sunlight. The vegetable life is eaten by man. The cells become flesh and blood and are finally transmuted into the most refined elements of nervous force and thought potency. The evolutionary impulse in every cell urges it forward to higher and still higher forms of expression. It reaches the human plane and becomes subservient to the power of mind. The mind weaves from the innumerable cells a structure corresponding in beauty and strength, or ugliness and weakness, to the positive or the negative thoughts of the individual. Sudden fright turns the face pale, contracts the cells, retards digestion, paralyzes the muscles, and affects injuriously the entire system. Despondent, irritable, worried thought will poison the blood, ruin the complexion, and mark the face with lines and creases. While if we hold persistently to our highest ideal of health and beauty, strength, courage, and happiness, we become powerful magnets to draw to us and make manifest the things desired. We surround ourselves by associations kindred to our thoughts. Adverse environments and unpleasant influences come as the result of negative states of mind and the habit of allowing discordant currents sent out by the unawakened and undeveloped to take control of our moods and to influence our actions. Whatever suggestion is accepted by the mind, we make a reality. We give it strength and activity. If we invite feelings of anxiety, fear, hatred, and discouragement, we give such things vitality. If we hold to aspiring, cheerful, uplifting thoughts, the good within us will thrive and create an intelligence of harmony. It is always our duty to nourish and cultivate only the true and good. The only hope of freedom from fear, grief, anxiety, disappointment, and failure is in alertness and watchfulness. You should awaken harmonious living pictures which will inspire to noble effort and high aspirations. You should rise above morbid conditions and invoke the support of principles which are immutable and divine. You should be alone with yourself as much as possible for concentration and individual aspiration. The problems of your life should be thought over and worked out in contemplation and solitude. At such times, your mind will be free from the influence of others. Force yourself to think of some worthy achievement until the memory of the thing sinks deep into your mind. Hold persistently to an intense special desire for the accomplishment of some noble aim. This attitude of mind will stir the divine nature within. By the quiet intensity of a determined resolve, you will arouse a magnetic, nervous fire of energy which will execute your purpose against all odds. It is an absurd position to assume that we are the helpless victims of every discordant influence which enters the mind. It is ignorance and weakness in man which welcome perverted thoughts. And realizing the disastrous effects of fear, worry, and hate, and other passions and emotions, we should turn a pure and positive stream of thought into the subjective mentality with such force and earnestness that every impure, negative, distorted thought will be swept away from us for all time. With every step of advancement in the gaining of more perfect control over the elementary, unorganized forces of life will come the reward for our efforts in the form of more strength and confidence. Every time we master some defect of our nature, every struggle we pass through in breaking some habit and overcoming the baneful influences which hold us in bondage, there comes to the mind an exhilarating sense of freedom and the consciousness of man's divinity. There is a force within us which we may arouse and command at will, a force which connects humanity with all the enkindling sympathies of life. And those who evoke it and wisely use it will rise above the shadow of pessimism, will conquer adversity, and tread the upward path toward the ideal and perfect. Our divine heritage gives us the power to uprear a mental structure that will be symmetrical and beautiful, and to call into existence a corresponding wholesome environment. The mind of the average person is a product of the surrounding materialism in which it is immersed. An aggregation of traditional theories, falsities, and delusions, a personification of morbid impressions seen by a distorted imagination. But above all this elusive atmosphere, the mental horizon is growing brighter, because there are great forces in the universe which are working for good. In spite of the substratum of ignorance and sensuousness, humanity is pressing towards the ideal. With the unfoldment of the divine force, which is universal in all nature and incarnate in man, there will come to the human race all potency and possibility. When the divine in man feels its affinity with the inexhaustible fountain, he will acquire, by thought discipline and control, a legitimate supremacy over material thraldom. Being a component part of the supreme power, we are ever attracting more of it to us by earnest desire and demand. In the measure that we recognize the reality of this power and gain the knowledge of how to use and direct it, we may obliterate the discordant, destructive thought forces and cause the mind to become more and more responsive to the prompting ideas and suggestions of the higher self. There is great work to be done in the world today, and those who have awakened to an understanding of the needs of the times by taking advantage of the opportunities presented may achieve remarkable success. The world is continually calling for zealous workers who have the strength of mind and the power of will to grapple with difficulties and to be equal to every demand made in the competitive struggle for supremacy. There is no excuse for failure. On every hand are opportunities presented for achievement such as have never before existed. Are you dissatisfied with life and disposed to blame fate and the injustice of social and commercial laws for your lack of achievement? The fault is not in the law, for unto every man is given the latent power and potentiality which he may make use of to the profit of a glorious success. If you feel the oppression of the world's indifference and coldness and are deprived of the sympathy and help you deserve, let your thoughts dwell on all that is beautiful in nature, and search with your aspirations for the light of high ideals. Though you may seem alone and neglected, and deprived of many things which make life beautiful and desirable, if you will listen to the monitor within, you will receive help and guidance. You, as a part of the infinite power, may share all the riches and glory belonging to human existence. No man or set of men, no government or assigned authority have the right to deprive you of freedom. For in the beginning of time it was ordained that you, an offspring of the infinite, should inherit the riches belonging to universal life. Then, in the name of that power and that wisdom whose domain extends through all space and all time, reach up to the source of being and demand your rightful inheritance. There is no need to drift with the tide of adversity away from the source of your strength and your sustenance. You need only to go forth with the consciousness of your relationship to the eternal to demand from the world the recognition of your divine selfhood. Why remain longer in bondage to the drift of circumstances and to the hypnotic influence of imperious natures? Who are they that you should yield to their unreasonable demands and have your life ruled by their suggestions? You came into the world alone, and you will go out alone. And what you shall do while under the law of human existence should be determined by no authority outside the sanctuary of your inmost being, where the divine and human blend. When you shut out the discordant influence of the world's erroneous thought and beliefs and come face to face with the infinite in the silent recesses of your consciousness, then you will learn the work set for you in life's voyage of hidden mysteries and will gain strength and courage to push forward to unexplored realms of usefulness. And you will become a steadfast, shining beacon in life's firmament, revealing to those who suffer the way to the truth. By concentrating the esoteric knowledge acquired by humanity through the long procession of ages, it is in man's power to control the vibrations of the bodily molecules and check the waste and drain of the volatile life, so as to prolong existence and call into his being the scattered forces from the earth and sea and sky. And with trained fingers he may touch the key of that corded instrument of law through which is awakened the sleeping potentialities and undiscovered harmonies within. In so doing, he bows not his head, nor bends his knee, nor lifts his voice in supplication to any god or supernatural power. uniting his efforts with the evolutionary forces, he gradually gains control over the externality of environment. It is not by faith, it is not by prayer, however earnest, nor by the assistance of friendly human beings that man may achieve his divine destiny. Through all the centuries, he has prayed to the gods fervently and with faith, but all were dumb and immovable, careless alike of the sweep of elemental forces which destroyed, or of the sunshine and the seasons which warmed and nourished. Man may rest for a time, protected by those who are more powerful. Friends may assist him during a period of need, but for the assistance he receives in his barter and exchange, he is forced to repay in compound interest, for while being carried, he loses much from the storehouse of his own possessions. There is no vigorous atonement for man, and this false doctrine, more than else, has kept him from the knowledge and attainment of his rightful inheritance. There are no two beings alike. The pathway of each leads through vast silences, which no sound of preceding footsteps has broken. It leads through the wilderness and the highways and strange countries. There are problems to face and obstacles to encounter which one must meet alone. There are things to be done by each that no one else can do. To recognize this fact and to look not for aid outside the power of one's own heart forces is to strike the keynote of individual supremacy. And the one who has entered this realm, who has become a god by his own safe election, may extend his dominion over the world's natural forces and rise to the threshold of the perfect way. End of chapter 10. Let's head over to the next video. Before we do, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment. What was your takeaway from these last two chapters? I'll meet you at the next video for the Spirit of Youth.